Great. So mental health and why it's everybody's business. The main topics we're going to look at today is what is mental health, how to look after my own mental health, signs and symptoms that somebody else or maybe yourself might be struggling, and how to support someone else. So these are big topics, right? And as I said, I'm going to do an overview, but there will also be a handout. I'll put a link to a handout in the chat box at the end that you can download for signposting and support. And you're also welcome to have a copy of the slides afterwards. So if you just want to relax and not write everything down, that will be brilliant. Just a bit of housekeeping. We have an hour to do this. And as I said, questions and answers at the end. And I will also stop the recording when we get to the questions and answers, in case anybody wants to discuss something or bring something up. But I also want you to look after yourself in the session. Sometimes talking about our emotions or our feelings brings something up for us and can trigger something. And if you need to step away or take a break, please do so. So do look after yourself during the session as well. So this is a rhetorical question because you're all on mute, but I just want you to take a few seconds to ask yourself, when you hear the words mental health, what other words pop into your head? Kind of a word association game. If somebody says mental health, boom, what's the first word that comes into your head? So you don't have to answer. I just want you to think about it for a little bit. Just reflect on it a little bit, a few seconds. I often do this session, especially online or in person, and most of the answers I get kind of things like depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and a whole lot of mixture of things. It's very rare that I get the following: that mental health is about confidence or positive vibes, or that it's about joy. And I think the first thing today, if you take one thing away from the session, is to really start redefining in your mind, what does the word mental health mean? Because it's not mental ill health, it's not mental health problems, it's just mental health. And I've got a brilliant definition for you, slightly older, from the World Health Organization, one of my favorites. And it says mental health is the emotional and spiritual resilience which allows us to enjoy life and survive pain, disappointment, and sadness. It is a positive sense of well-being and an underlying belief in your own and others' dignity and worth. It's kind of my favorite bit, that last bit, an underlying belief in your own and others' dignity and worth, because it kind of plays about our relationships and our connections to others. And that can often be really damaged when people become unwell. So the main thing to think about now is that mental health is about resilience. It's a positive sense of well-being, believing in your own worth and your own dignity and the dignity and worth of others. That is mental health. So it's part of life for everyone. Just as we have physical health, we have mental health. So newsflash, we all have mental health. And how can we look after it? So I'm going to share some tips with you to look after your own mental health. And can I just say that all of the tips I'm going to share is some strategies, and they're all evidence-based. They're based on research that's been done to show what really works for our well-being. But I also want to say it's important to understand that the way we feel, our feelings, our emotions, and our thoughts can really be on a bit of a roller coaster, especially this year. So when we talk about these strategies, these are kind of strategies that you want to look at almost daily or regularly when you are doing quite well. It's really hard when somebody is struggling and becoming unwell to kind of say, here's a strategy. We think you should do more exercise. People might say, yeah, no, I don't feel like it. So what I really just want to sort of emphasize is this is kind of the way to turn up for your well-being every day, to show up for your well-being and reclaim your self-care every day. And the first one is meaningful connections with others. This is so important, be it friends, be it family, be it a club you belong to, organization. But I kind of want to give you this great definition from the resilience guru, Professor Brené Brown. And she says, I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. So when we talk about meaningful connections, we talk about connections that's supportive, a reciprocal connection. That is what we're talking about. And those are the people in your life, when you meet up with them, when you talk to them, you can feel the difference it makes afterwards to your energy, your mood, and your well-being. And I think that's what we've really been missing this year, the energy we get from that physical contact with people. But I also say to people when we get to this little bit, because we often unpack this in a training session, is think about those connections and how you look after them. If you think of a person that fits this definition, is it maybe time to send them a text or arrange a call or a meetup outside, which some of us can do at the moment? But it's also how you nurture those connections so that they keep on being connections and meaningful connections for you. So that's our first strategy. And I'm sure most of you would go, yes, Hanley, yeah, no, I think I can agree with that. The second one, did I say some of these strategies might be a little bit harder than others? Yes, ask for help when you need it. I think this is a strategy that can be tough for people. Because often if you're helping others, or you the person in the family, or you the parent or the coach, and people come to you for help, it's really hard for people who always give help to see themselves at the receiving end. And I find this a lot when we do training for GPs or for police officers or for the NHS or social workers, because they are the care providers. So it's kind of difficult sometimes for them to stop and go, actually, most humans fall in both categories, providing help, but also asking for help when you need it. And I think here it's also important that I am going to give you signposting later, but sometimes asking for help can be quite quick. It can be a friend or a family member or a helpline. But sometimes if it's an appointment with the GP or it's mental health services, it can take longer. So my advice to people always is ask for help early. Don't wait for things to get bad before you ask for help. It is okay to ask for help. My third strategy today, and of course there's lots of strategies, I kind of picked the best ones for you today, is to focus on what you can control. And I think this year, all the training sessions I've done, we've spent a lot of time talking about this, because there's so many things out there that's making us angry, that's really messing with our thoughts and our feelings, but a lot of that we can do nothing about. And the main thing about focusing on where you can control things is, there's a great saying in yoga, and I hope I can remember it. Energy goes where attention flows. So if your attention is about maybe somebody not wearing a mask in a shop, or politicians that's irritating you, that's kind of where a lot of your human energy goes. And you really want to, that's okay, I think. But I think if the majority of your energy goes there, you're going to have less energy to focus on the things you can control, like your actions, your behavior, your reactions. So what I always say to people is, if you want to worry about stuff or you want to have a vent, go ahead and do it. It's good as well. But maybe put a bit of a timing on it. Say, listen, I'm going to try now, moan about this for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to focus my energy on something I actually can control. This is a great quote from Wayne Dyer. You cannot always control what goes on outside, but you can control what goes on inside. I mean, that sentence is up for debate, I think, but still, I would say the majority of our actions and behaviors and reactions we can control. And there's lots of ways to do this. Some people find they off switch. They go, right, this is it. For the next 5 minutes, I'm taking a break. For other people, it's talking to somebody, just having a quick vent. Say, right, let me get this, and then I'm going to focus on what I can control. Keeping a journal is another really good way of putting your thoughts and feelings, disclosing them, getting them out. And then mindfulness, or for some people, it's prayer, to just kind of take you back to that space where you sort of find a little bit of equilibrium and a little bit of peace and a little bit of headspace. My fourth tip for looking after your mental health is to get out there. And have I picked not the best day to say this, right? But there's no Wi-Fi in nature. But what a great connection. And I think you're already doing this. I think what's really great about sport is a lot of sport can be out in nature or, on a football pitch. I take a walk. I live in central London, so I take a walk down to one of our local nature reserves, and I always pass a football pitch on my way back. And it's just so great to see people on a Sunday morning and the parents out there. And it's just wonderful, because I think you're outside, you're with people who enjoy the same thing as you, and you're getting some exercise. It's kind of a triple dose of well-being. So I don't think I need to sell this one to you. Gratefulness has been proven to be really good, especially if we have kind of unhelpful or challenging thoughts or emotion. If you tend to be anxious or worried, or you catastrophize, you start with something small and you build it up big, it's great to just stop and say, okay, what am I grateful for today? For me at the moment, I hope you're all there because I'm looking at this presentation. It's my Wi-Fi connection. I'd say, hey, I'm super grateful for this Wi-Fi connection. Thank you. It's working at the moment. Why gratefulness works, it unshackles us from our difficult emotions. And even if you don't share your gratitude with others, it really does help. But I want to just have a caveat here and say the benefits of gratitude takes time, normally around 4 weeks. So a daily exercise, just 1 or 2 minutes, write down or think about, what am I truly grateful for today? The good thing is the benefits lasts, and it also has a lasting effect on the brain. Hey, do I need to sell this one to you? Good things come to those who sweat. Being out there, getting exercise, releasing the endorphins, the building blocks of the serotonin, our happy hormone. This is great for our well-being. So we all have mental health. I've shared 6 strategies, evidence-based strategies with you. And I just want to remind you that we all have mental health, just as we have physical health. But just like physical health, our mental health has ups and downs. So we're moving into the next part. What affects our mental health? So this positive feeling, this feeling that we can cope, this resilience, be it emotional, be it spiritual, what affects it? Now, we can probably spend a half an hour on gathering some of your thoughts and ideas, but there's a lot of things out there. Job security, finances, relationships, stress, peer pressure, not feeling balanced, unhappy thoughts and feelings because of what is happening to us. And the list is very long. And often when I talk to people and we do this list, I say to them at the end, can you give me one word to just summarize this list? If you have to choose one word to say, this is what it is, all of this, if we have to put it together in a package and label that package, it's life. It's what life throws at us, what lives bring to us. Like this here. It's extraordinary, but it's still part of our lives. So I think that's really important to remember, that any one of us can go through an experience that can affect our mental health, and that's okay. It's really about what we do next. So a common question people often ask me in these sessions is, how do you know when somebody is experiencing a mental health problem? And I always kind of pause here because people want me to give them a long list. And I always worry that they're going to laminate it and then go around with a tick box in Sainsbury's and go, ha, right. Okay, do remember people are hungover, pregnant, angry. There's lots of reasons why people might have symptoms that you think, whoa, what's happening? I think the main thing I always say to people, if it's somebody you know, you would know. I don't have to give you a list. So if I speak to parents or managers or organizations, I say, people in your team, if you know them, you would know something is off. I think it's harder if it's somebody you don't know. So sometimes I speak to volunteer organizations and they work with drop-in volunteers and they say, but I don't know the volunteer. So I would say the first thing to ask yourself is, are there any changes in the person's behavior? And again, this is really if you know the person a little bit. If they haven't disclosed anything to you, we're looking at physical changes. And they're an array of changes from mild to moderate to more severe. We're looking at emotional changes. So a person normally, that's probably quite sort of chirpy. You see maybe, oh no, they're not looking so great. But what I also want to say here is normally we look at these changes that they become quite intense, and there's a bit of a duration to them. It's not 1 or 2 days, but maybe longer than 2 weeks. That's really when the red flags start going, actually, something isn't right here. Behavioral changes and also cognitive changes, maybe the way the person thinks and what they say about their thoughts. All of these could be kind of signs that something isn't going right. And you can apply that to yourself, right? When you're going through a difficult time. Sometimes just think about what happened to your thoughts. Sometimes if we go through a difficult time, we talk quite negatively about ourselves. We might withdraw and we might be quieter than usual, or some people get more talkative than usual. And I think before I move on to show you the spectrum of mental illness is to say, sometimes there are no signs and symptoms. And I think that's the hardest thing. People are incredibly skilled at hiding when things are tough for them. And that's a whole other conversation. Why is it so hard for us to tell people we're struggling? So yes, changes indicates that there might be something wrong, but sometimes there will be no signs or symptoms that you can visibly detect. Now, we talked about mental health as a positive thing. So I just want to show you this spectrum, this matrix, what you want to call it. And we're kind of starting from the traffic light system, really, from green to red. So if we look at the first two, is when we're excelling, we're cheerful, we're joyful, we're energetic, we're performing well, we have that flow, that things are just, when we start a task, it just feels so easy. And we kind of really fully realize our potential. So I don't know how many of you look at this today and go, yes, I'm definitely there. Or going, what? I remember feeling like this about a year ago. So you can see that we all go through a part of the spectrum. In the thriving bit, second green, we're doing well. We're sleeping well, we're eating well, we feel calm, we feel sort of in control of our emotions, we feel fairly positive. And I think a lot of people this year, and I will count myself amongst them, are in the yellow bit. Some days where we're just surviving, we're just waking up and going, this is another day that I have to get through. We might be worried about something. Parents are worried about their children's education. Children are worried about their parents, especially their grandparents. We might feel a sense of unease where we feel nervous or irritable. Also a feeling of sadness. I spoke to a friend of mine who said to me, I miss my life. So that almost like a moment of grief there. And a lot of people have reported to me that they feel quite distracted and withdrawn, especially when they have to get on with tasks. So hopefully most of us are in those first three. But then if we look, if mental health is sitting here where we're feeling we can cope with stuff, and I think mental health is sitting even in the yellow, I just also want to say that sometimes we move through these, depending on our circumstances, our personality, or if somebody has a diagnosis. Really, when we start kind of seeing the signs and symptoms that worries us, is the last two. Is somebody struggling, showing signs of anxiety or worry or a low mood, signs of fatigue, their performance are affected in whatever way, and they're reporting poor sleep or poor appetite. But can I also say sometimes it can be excess appetite or excess sleep. And then finally, we have when people go into a crisis, where you can now see really extreme changes in their behavior, their mood, their emotions, their thoughts, and their feelings. And my experience working with organizations is often this is when people would start looking for help, which is a pity because I think we can start looking for help in the yellow one. And on the signposting, there'll be some places like talking therapies that people can go and look at cognitive behavior therapy or counseling. You don't have to wait till you're struggling or in crisis, because it's just so much harder when somebody is in crisis to get better quicker. It just takes a little bit longer. But again, we're all different and we all react differently to different strategies and to different coping mechanisms. So that's kind of a spectrum. I hope that's helpful. Now, the question on your lips, why did I say lips? Maybe the question in your minds are, how can you support someone who is struggling? And a lot of people say to me, I'm not a mental health expert. So I just want to say, first of all, you don't need to be a mental health expert to help anybody. There's one quality we all have that's essential to helping somebody. And I will talk about that. So the first thing is you can have a chat, letting somebody know that you're worried about them. How are you doing? Are you okay? It's a good way to open up a conversation. It shows you care about the person and you have time for them. And they do not have to avoid things with you. So would you like to have a chat? Are you doing okay? How are you? It's just a good way to just start a conversation. But I know sometimes people are worried because they say, what if I ask somebody to have a chat and they disclose something really big and I don't know how to handle that, right? So sometimes it's also good to think, where would I have this chat? Do I have time for it? And is it maybe good to have it somewhere private or confidential or personal space, just in case the person becomes upset or you just need a little bit more time. So make sure if you only have 5 minutes left, that might not be the best time, but you can always say, should we arrange a chat? Would you like to chat? This is the one. This is the quality. And this is so hard. Offer your time to listen. Ask open questions because that helps people open up. So by open questions, we will say things like, how has this happened? What's going on? Where or when? But I want to say something about listening because I think if you're a coach or a parent or a manager, I think often we have a tendency of wanting to fix people. And I know I'm in that category. I've worked with people with severe and enduring mental health illness at Kensington and Chelsea Mind. And when they came to me with a problem, my first reaction was to say, right, this is what we're going to do. And I don't think that's bad, but it also meant that I stopped listening. And what I've learned since I've been at Mind in Harrow, because we do have a helpline, and all staff members take shifts on the helpline, is sometimes you can just listen. Sometimes I'll have somebody call and there isn't something I can do for them. They're already linked to secondary mental services. Maybe they have a diagnosis, maybe they're on medication. And at the end of the call, people would say, thank you so much. And I'd say, for what? I haven't really. And they go, for listening. Now, remember the two definitions I've had earlier. The first one was the belief in our own worth and dignity and the dignity and worth of others. Listening to somebody, you showing them that you believing in their dignity and worth. And I think that's worth more than we can think. And remember the definition that we had about connection. If somebody feels seen and heard and valued. I cannot emphasize this step because somebody could be referred, somebody could go to a counsellor, but as we know sometimes resources are few. There's not always a lot of time for professionals to listen. So this is the most important skill as a coach or a parent or a manager or a friend that you can offer people. And it really means that you sort of get rid of your prejudice or generalizations you have about mental health and just sit back and just listen. And I still find that hard not to jump in and want to fix and say, right, this is what we need to do. Because I find often, especially with adults, sometimes as you listen to people, they come to their own conclusions and they come to their own strategies on what they think might work. But just the fact that somebody asked them that question, are you okay? Do you want to have a chat? And then make the time to listen. That's the most valuable thing that you can offer. So here are some of the questions, because people sometimes say, I'm not sure what to ask. How are you doing at the moment? How long have you felt like this? Are there any other problems that might be helpful for me to know about? And are you aware that there is help out there? And is there anything I can do to help? after you've listened, or you find maybe the person becomes quiet and you think it might be good to have an open question. It's also important to reassure people, because if people feel confident enough that they can trust you to tell you how they feel, it's a big step. And so if they're upset, it's okay to reassure them. So it's okay to be upset, because often if people get upset and they cry, the first thing they say is, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. So I think it's really good to reassure people. Let them know you're there to listen when they need to talk. So if they say, you know what, I actually can't talk now, say that's okay. You know, I'll be here. Let me know when you feel like a chat. I just see I have a connection at my a message that my internet connection is unstable. So do let me know in the chat if I've frozen, or I hope you can still hear me.
Yeah, it was just for a couple of seconds.
Just a couple of seconds.
Yeah,
Shall
okay.
it's okay, right. So I'll just go back to that slide just to say, reassure them, tell people it's okay. If they don't feel comfortable talking now, say we can always talk later. And you might find if people get upset and they start crying, they will apologize to say, it's okay to be upset, you're human. Patience, gosh, this is a hard one for me. You don't always know the full story. And there might be reasons why the person finds it difficult to ask for help. So you might say, after the conversation, you might say, you know what, I know of this service, or I know of this number. And they might say, actually, you know, I'm not ready. I want to say this step about being patient is really, really tough if it's a loved one or somebody close to you. Much tougher than when if it's a client or somebody at work. It's really hard because we just want people to get better. But sometimes that takes time. So you might just have to just sort of, you know, just put your patient filter on. And if somebody's spoken to you about how they feel or how they're doing, I think that's okay. If you see them again, there's no need to avoid them or act differently. We all know there's quite a big stigma attached to mental illness. So behaving differently will just make somebody feel isolated. I've had quite a few people that I've spoken to who's maybe become unwell and went off work, and nobody would call them or text them. And I think sometimes it's because people don't know what to say. But I think it's okay to just say, how are you doing today? And also talk about other stuff. Talk about, sport or EastEnders, or you don't always just have to talk about what the person has disclosed to you. This is a question a lot of people ask me. What if people don't want support? What if people say, actually, I don't want any help? I think listening and patience, we can go back to that. Just gently explore the reasons. People might have gotten help in the past and didn't find it very helpful and say, you know, I'm not interested. But if you can just talk and listen without judgment and work out what's getting in the way of them getting help. Also, consider if they want to talk to somebody else. If you've approached somebody and said, you know what, I'm a bit worried. Do you want to have a chat? You're doing okay? And they go, actually, I don't want to talk. If you explore that, saying, is there somebody else you prefer to talk to? Because maybe you're not the right person. And when does somebody need more help? When does your role as a coach or a parent or a manager comes to an end? I think if you can see that somebody's mental health problems are affecting their daily life. So we're talking absenteeism. And remember, on the spectrum, some of the symptoms we saw in the orange and the red, when some of those changes become very challenging, and they're lasting for a long time. And please do refer to the signposting sheet I'll put in the chat afterwards. So if somebody remains unwell, they should be encouraged to seek appropriate help. I'm always saying to people, a good first stop is your GP, but we know how long it can take to get an appointment. And we also know not everybody's got a great relationship with their GP. So the first thing they might say is, I need to change GPs, and that takes time as well. And that's kind of why I want to go back to that spectrum and say, don't wait for things to go into the red. Let's start looking after ourselves, the 6 strategies we discussed, or other strategies that work for you in the green bit. And then when we get to the orange bit, the yellow bit, maybe that's when we ask for help. And to end today, also I want to just emphasize, it can be upsetting for somebody to hear somebody's in distress or they disclose something quite difficult. So it's important also to look after yourself when you've spoken to somebody. take some time out to relax and do something you enjoy, because this might be something that you carry, especially if it's a Friday night or it's the weekend or it's after hours. It's very important that you also look after yourself. So very soon, I'm going to open up for any questions, thoughts, or comments, anything that I've discussed that's popped into your head, but I'll also give you my email in case you want to get in touch and you want to have more information, or maybe there's something you want to share that's really worked for you that you think might be helpful to share with the other members here today. This is who I am, in case you've joined a little bit later. My name's Hanley, and I'm from Mind in Harrow. And this is my email, h.burger@mindinharrow.org.uk. Well, just to say, we do a variety of training courses at Mind in Harrow. And I'm going to stop share and stop recording. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening today. Thank you for your time and energy, and for taking the time to be here for this very, very important topic, to really turn up for yourself and for others. And I am stopping sharing, and I am hopefully